Why does he keep hiding his face in the wall? One of the guests whispered, their jeweled glass of champagne trembling just slightly. The lavish ballroom glittered with chandeliers, but all eyes had shifted toward a small, strange corner. There, the billionaire's young son stood motionless, forehead pressed hard against the marble wall as though trying to vanish into it. His silk shirt was wrinkled, his small shoulders hunched tight, ignoring the music, the laughter, and even his father's disapproving glare. At first, the crowd chuckled. "Shy boy," someone smirked. "Spoiled brat," another murmured. But the boy didn't move. Not even when the billionaire snapped his fingers. Not even when guests whispered louder. His face stayed buried in the wall. It was the maid, the quiet woman who had been carrying trays all night, who finally approached, her steps hesitant, her voice gentle. She bent down beside him and whispered, "Sweetheart, why are you hiding like this?" The boy turned just enough for her to see his lips move. His voice was barely a breath, but his words dropped like stones into the silence. "She's in the wall." The glass slipped from the maid's hand, shattering on the polished floor. Conversations froze. Laughter died mid-breath. Every guest stared. The boy's father shot up from his golden chair, face pale but tightening into anger. "Nonsense," he barked. "Stop filling people's heads with childish lies." But the boy's whisper echoed in the maid's ears, sending a chill through her spine. Not "I'm scared," not "I don't want to be here." No, he had said something far more haunting. "She's in the wall." And as the chandelier lights flickered ever so slightly, no one could laugh anymore. The billionaire's face hardened, though his eyes betrayed something raw, fear, quickly masked by fury. He snapped at the maid, "Take him away!" "He's exhausted, that's all." But whispers began rippling through the room. Guests exchanged uneasy glances. "Did you hear what he said? In the wall?" The boy remained pressed to the marble, trembling, refusing to turn around. The maid touched his shoulder softly. "Who, child?" she asked, her voice shaking. The boy's lips parted again. "The woman. She cries at night. Nobody listens." A sharp gasp spread like wildfire across the hall. The billionaire slammed his hand against the table, rattling the silverware. "Enough of this! He's sick! He doesn't know what he's saying!" His laugh was brittle, too forced. But behind the laughter, a storm gathered in the crowd's eyes. The maid's hand lingered on the boy's back. Her voice was calm, steady, even as her heart raced. "Maybe we should listen to him." The billionaire's glare burned into her. "You forget your place." His voice dropped lower, dangerous. But the boy's whisper cut through it all. "I hear her every night. She asks me to help her." And then the lights flickered again. Longer this time. Murmurs rose, unease settling heavy in the air. The night had changed. No amount of wealth or arrogance could cage what had just been set free. The billionaire raised his glass, forcing a crooked smile, trying to seize back the room. "Children say things, imaginations, don't indulge it." But his hand shook slightly, betraying the mask. The maid knelt, her eyes level with the boy's. "What does she say, child?" Silence. Then, almost inaudible, he whispered, "She says, he put me here." The word "he" struck like thunder. Gasps broke the air. Heads turned as if pulled by invisible strings toward the billionaire. His smile cracked, rage flooding his face. "This is absurd. Do you all truly believe the ramblings of a child?" But the crowd had shifted. Their smirks faded, replaced by wide, suspicious eyes. One guest whispered, "There were rumors." "His first wife wasn't there?" Another, "They said she vanished." The billionaire pounded his fist on the table. "Lies! Baseless lies!" His voice shook louder than intended. The maid's hand tightened around the boy's trembling fingers. She stared at the billionaire, her voice quiet but cutting. "He's not lying. Children don't invent cries in the night." The billionaire's jaw locked. "Watch your tongue." His words hissed like venom, but even venom could not stop the weight settling over the hall. The boy finally lifted his head from the wall, eyes glistening with tears, yet steady. He stared straight at his father and whispered one last phrase that shattered the night. "She wants out." A wineglass slipped from someone's hand, shattering into silence. The crowd recoiled, faces pale as the boy's whisper seemed to echo through the walls themselves. The billionaire froze mid-breath, his facade of power cracking like glass under pressure. "Ridiculous," he muttered, but his voice faltered, his eyes darting toward the west wing of the mansion. The guests noticed. They leaned in, murmuring, eyes narrowing with suspicion. The maid's voice trembled as she asked, "Who wants out, child?" The boy didn't blink. His words fell like a verdict. "The woman you locked away." Gasps tore through the crowd. Someone covered their mouth. Another whispered, "It's true!" All the rumors. The billionaire slammed his fist against the table so hard the candles flickered. "Stop this madness! You will not spread lies in my home." But even as he shouted, the walls groaned. A deep, eerie creak like the mansion itself was waking from a long sleep. Guests shifted uneasily, glancing around, suddenly aware of every shadow. The boy took a step closer to the wall, his small hand pressing against it. "She's been waiting," he whispered, his voice calm, almost sorrowful. The billionaire's face drained of color. His mask of arrogance had shattered completely. "Enough!" he roared, but his voice was drowned out by the rising whispers of the crowd. What did he mean, locked away? Was it his wife? What has he done? The maid pulled the boy back protectively, her eyes locked on the billionaire. "The truth has a way of breaking free," she said quietly. The lights flickered again. Then one by one they went dark. Screams erupted. The grand chandelier swayed, groaning as though the mansion itself was bearing witness. In the suffocating darkness, only the boy's whisper could be heard. "She's coming!" The courtyard fell into stunned silence, every ear straining, every heartbeat pounding. The west wing moaned again, wood splintering, chains rattling against iron. The air thickened with dread, like the house itself was choking on its own secrets. Then came the voice, faint, hollow, but unmistakably human. "Help me!" The crowd recoiled. Some screamed, others clung to each other, faces drained of color. The maid's knees nearly buckled. But the boy held her hand tight, his tiny fingers anchoring her in the storm. The billionaire crumpled to the ground, his once commanding figure reduced to a shivering husk. "It's not her," he muttered desperately. "It's the house, it's just the house." But no one believed him. The boy stepped forward, slipping from the maid's arms. His small frame cast a shadow across the courtyard, his voice steady, calm, unshakable. "You put her there." "And now she wants out." The billionaire's eyes went wide, terror-stricken. "No, she was sick, unstable. I did what I had to do." His voice cracked, pleading, but it only fueled the crowd's fury. "Unstable? Or inconvenient?" someone shouted. "You silenced her for money," another cried. "Monster!" The voices rose, a storm of rage closing in. The west wing thundered. Boards split apart, nails shrieking free. Dust exploded into the night sky. The walls themselves seemed to groan with agony, each sound like the cry of a buried soul. And then it came. A final crack, sharp and violent. The chains on the door snapped like twigs, clattering to the ground. The doors shuddered, swinging open an inch, releasing a stench of damp stone and something older, darker, forgotten. The crowd gasped, stumbling back. Even the air seemed to grow colder, as if death itself was spilling from the house. The maid grabbed the boy's hand, her breath trembling. "Sweetheart." "What's inside?" The boy turned, eyes wide but calm. And with a voice that cut like a blade, he whispered, "Her truth." The billionaire screamed, a raw, broken howl, lunging for the doors as if to hold them shut. But the force was greater than him. The mansion had chosen, and whatever it had kept hidden for all these years, was about to step into the light. The west wing doors flew wide open, slamming against the walls with a force that silenced the courtyard. Dust and shadows poured out like a living thing, curling into the night air. And from the darkness came footsteps, slow, uneven, but steady. The crowd froze, breaths held tight as a figure emerged. A woman, frail, pale, her clothes torn with time, but her eyes burned with fire. Gasps filled the courtyard. "It's her," someone whispered. "She's alive!" The billionaire stumbled backward, tripping over his own feet, his diamond cufflinks catching the light as he crawled like a trapped animal. No, you're not real. You're gone! But the woman's voice sliced through the night, sharp and unbroken. You buried me. You locked me away like I was nothing. And now the world will know what you are. The crowd erupted in chaos. Reporters lifted cameras. Guests whispered, some screaming, some sobbing. The undercurrent of laughter and arrogance that once filled the mansion was gone, replaced by raw horror. The boy stood silently, his small hand gripping the maid's, as if he had always known this moment would come. His whisper carried, calm but chilling. Truth never stays buried. The billionaire's face twisted, his mask of power shattered. Please, listen to me. She was dangerous. She wanted everything I built. I had no choice. But his words sounded thin, pathetic, drowned out by the woman's steady glare. She raised her trembling hand, pointing at him. You took my voice. But tonight, it returns. The outsider ally, a stern judge who had been silent until now, stepped forward, his voice booming across the courtyard. Enough. What we have witnessed tonight is proof. This man's empire is built on lies, on cruelty. Justice will not wait another day. The billionaire's pleas dissolved into sobs as officers moved in. The same guards who once bowed to him now gripping his arms in iron. His protests turned to screams, desperate, hollow, echoing against the mansion's stone. The woman lifted her chin, her frail body trembling but her spirit unbroken. She looked to the maid, then to the boy, her voice soft but powerful. Thank you for bringing the light into the dark. The boy only nodded, eyes steady. He did not need to speak. The silence itself carried the weight of victory. As the billionaire was dragged away, the crowd erupted, not in laughter, not in cruelty, but in cheers. Cheers for the woman who had survived. Cheers for the boy who spoke truth. Cheers for the maid who had stood unshaken in a house built on arrogance. The mansion groaned one last time, its walls seeming to sigh as if finally free of the secrets they had held for too long. And when dawn broke, the headlines told the story the billionaire had tried to bury. Power corrupted, truth revealed. A boy's whisper brings an empire to its knees. The maid walked away holding the boy's hand. The woman following close behind, her first steps into freedom bathed in sunlight. The message was clear, ringing louder than any scream or cry. Arrogance may build walls, but truth always tears them down.